I had a dream. Now, what else did MLK have? Now, let's get down into the economic beliefs of the great man himself.
Malcolm Garvey, Huey.
It's Gangsta
Malcolm
Grill,
Garvey,
Gangsta
Huey.
Grill,
Life is like a movie.
Free
I die, I organize. Everything I do's revolutionize. I build what's good for the whole damn hood. Study G's like these, really think you should.
Look, man, Checkmate 007 coming back at you for a new one right here. I love this right here. We're finna get into the economic beliefs of Dr. King Jr. himself. They love to talk about all the pacifist stuff and really paint him in a real generic light for rights. But what did he believe when it came down to economics? That's what we need to get talking about. First off, he believed that American capitalism should collapse on itself so a better economic system could take place. I don't know if you looked around lately, but it seemed like it's doing that. But let's get into one of his speeches. I'm gonna get into I think 4 today. His one on the false god of money, 1953. See, in July of 1953, King gave a sermon in Atlanta that warned listeners about the ways of money and how it impacts society and their individual lives. See, I'm gonna do a small quote for this one. Money is in its proper place is worthwhile and necessary instrument for a well-rounded life. But when it's projected to the status of a god, see, a god, it becomes a power that corrupts and an instrument of exploitation. So you can see what he was talking about here, the love of money. People are making God their money. And I often talk about this a lot when I'm speaking to people outside of my channel. If you look on the American money, it always says, in God we trust. And I always ask people, what God are you talking about? I don't believe any God that we serve would allow such things to come about over the thought of money. Now, let's get into a second one. This is when he was against Vietnam, which most people at that time were. Now, one reason King opposed the Vietnam War was that it took money and resources that could have been used for the social welfare back home in America. So I'm gonna hit him with this quote right here. This is 1967. True compassion is more than flinging a coin to a beggar. It is not haphazard nor superficial. It comes to see that the edifice which produces beggars need reconstruction. You're not solving the problem, you're just throwing money at it. Get to the source of it. Now, a true revolution of values will soon look uneasy on the glaring contrast of poverty and wealth. See, changing the system is going to make the rich angry because it's going to change status quo. So this is a lot of time why you always see certain, I want to say, propaganda used to make sure things stay the same. But he definitely talked about how money was going overseas in war that should have been used for the economic betterment of America, which has been talked about a lot. I forget the gentleman's name, I believe he's Chinese. He's talked about how the Americans did not invest in the infrastructure as much as they could have in like the last 50 years. Now we're going to get down to another one. And this one right here was also in 1967. More jobs, guaranteed income. See, the ideal of guaranteed income has become a hot topic with the automation of jobs and people scraping around with the minimum wage or the slave wage. But it's not an idea that's been recently or the millennials came up with, right? They didn't think that. In 1967, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, Dr. King called for the creation of more jobs, and guaranteed incomes. See, and we're gonna grab a quote here. We must create full employment, or we must create incomes. People must be made consumers by one method or the other. Once placed in this position, we must be concerned that the potential of the individual is not wasted. This is one of the biggest complaints we're having for the millennial generation. All this education and our jobs are really meaningless compared to the cost of living, which is wage stagnation. And that's what's really driving like that the poverty gap is really affecting Social Security. If you caught my episode, I believe it's episode 2019, where I said the reason why Social Security is going to fail is because you cannot tax a livable wage to pay a livable wage. So it cannot sustain itself. Now, the last one I'm going to quote from MLK is my favorite. The other America which he stated in 1968. Just weeks before his death of the great man, King was preparing to launch a poor people's campaign in the effort to gain economic justice. See, economic justice. He gave a speech in Detroit called The Other America, where he addressed the connection between inequality in jobs and justice. And what are we doing today? Inequality in jobs and justice. See, once you don't solve a problem, it don't go away. It just keep coming back. Procrastination, deflection, head in the sand is not going anywhere. Solve the problem. Now, I'm going to read most of the quote here. The most critical problem in the other America is the economic problem. By the millions, people of the other America find themselves perishing on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. When in fact, that black man in the United States, in America, is facing a literal depression. When there is massive unemployment in the black community, it's called a social problem. But when there is a massive unemployment in the white community, it's called a depression. See, I have a lot of rules of thought and a lot of things to sum this up. It's not a problem until the white man is facing it. It's not a problem. The war on drugs was cute for the white man to run about. And I mean, Dave Chappelle touched it too. But now the opioid crisis is now a white man problem. So now it's door-to-door, wall-to-wall coverage. See, this is the inequality in America that we're talking about here. The fact that could not have life insurance until about maybe 4 or 5 decades ago, of how redlining really destroyed the idea of where you could buy property. There has been a lot of discrimination on an economic level. And that's why I talk about financial literacy the way I do. But MLK was not just a pacifist. He understood, as a doctor himself, that the economic injustice was the key source of the problems that was plaguing black America. The idea that they keep painting him up as a pacifist that only wanted rights is a total lie. And this is just some of the experts of some of his speeches to bring some of this to a head. Get to the source of the man and his dream if you're going to idolize him. And stop just using him as a token for such silliness to make people in their bubbles feel good. That's how you enact real change. Checkmate 007 out, man. My content will be getting a lot more intense as we get into some of these struggles of how economics is truly plaguing you mentally. Check the last rant to get down to the 3 financial mindsets and how you don't really have control over either. But I'm out. Like, subscribe, share, like, and tell me your thoughts in the comments. Did I hit it on the head? Did I get it right or did I get it wrong? I'm interested.
Organize everything I do's revolutionize. I build what's good for the whole damn hood. Study G.